Welcome to the Business of Soul Searching. My name is Erin, and I invite you to join me as I travel the world challenging risk takers who have soul searched and came out on the other side to tell us their incredible stories. Are you ready for this? All right, everyone, welcome back to the Business of Soul Searching. This is Erin, and I want you all to welcome Rohan Gilkes, who is known as a serial entrepreneur, just because of the fact that he's the founder of Launch27, Backpack, Wet Shave Club, Maids in Black, and Launch27, and also the founder of Inclusive, which we're going to talk about later. That's actually how I came across you is that, you know, that premise, and I love the idea. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. You've also helped hundreds of companies launch and grow through series of transparent case studies. And along the way, you've been featured in the Washington Post, Mixergy, the Startup Foundation, and other business media. And you're the member of the Young Entrepreneur Council. Wow. You also serve as an advisor for a number of local startups and co-founded the startup incubator grooveliving.com. You've developed and presented business case studies, as mentioned before, for Catholic University's MBA program and is a regular speaker at startup conferences. So first of all, how does it feel to even hear all of that stuff back, that you've accomplished so many things?
It doesn't even sound real, actually.
Like one person could accomplish.
But yeah, it's been pretty crazy. But I've definitely had the most interesting last 5 years of my life. So everything there is kind of wrapped up in that 5 years, and it was a lot of my work and the work of an amazing team that I was able to assemble during that time.
Mm. All right. And then also, of course, I do, my research, as I should as an interview hostess. So I visited your SoundCloud and heard your accent for the first time because for the listeners, so Rohan and I are in a similar group. Actually, I think we were in a couple different groups, but I hadn't heard your voice. I just had seen you online, and I was like, I like what he's doing. I like how he carries himself. So I definitely want to feature him on my show. But when I heard your accent for the first time, I was like, oh, okay, that sounds Caribbean, but I'm not sure where exactly. And I read your bio stating that you are, in fact, from Bush Hall, which was known for drugs and violence. You were kind of talking about in the interview. So tell us more about that.
Oh I'm from Barbados. Like I was born and raised in Barbados. I lived there until I was 18 years old. My entire family is still in Barbados, and yeah, Bushall, that's my neighborhood. That's funny.
Like I was
I
like,
grew up in a
wait.
neighborhood. Yeah, it's kind of cool to hear it. That's home for me. But yeah, it was a tough neighborhood. There's a lot of tough neighborhoods in Barbados, and that was definitely one that was well known when I was growing up for that type of like if I look back at where a lot of my friends are right now is not good. But there are also some amazing people there, and my family's still there, and most of the friends that I've made in life are still there. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about kind of in that particular interview that you were, while all of that's going on around you, you were interested in reading and furthering your education. How did that affect your street cred, so to speak? Like, how do people view you from that area?
Um, I don't think it had any effect. Just growing up there, people are looking for opportunity.
Mm.
So it is like if that opportunity is through sports, or if it's through education, or if it's through entrepreneurship or whatever else, like people are looking to find ways to improve their lots in lives. So there isn't any negative look towards people that are just trying to get better. So yeah, that's what it was like for me. All my friends and family and people in my neighborhood, they're still super supportive, and every once in a while, I'm in the newspapers there or something, and like I get all the phone calls like, "Hey, we saw you in the newspaper,"
Aw.
and so it's like it's really really cool. It's like the same cool vibe from like when I left in 1990s. Yeah.
Wow, that's actually really awesome. For sure.
Hmm.
And then like another thing I was reading kind of in your bio was that you talk about your first interaction with making money was working for a woman, and making 25 cents to the dollar to her dollar by selling freshly cut lettuce. What do you think draws certain children or adolescents to crave making money while others do not?
So yeah, that's actually what happened. To answer your question, I guess I can only think about like necessity
Mm,
as one of the explanations. I know that like there are multiple explanations, but for me, it was almost like you're in a desert and there is water over the hill somewhere, and if you want to survive, you better start walking.
okay.
You know what I mean? And like try to get over the hill to get that water. And that was it for me. Like we were, in poverty, and like in the 19 like the 80s and 90s, like we were going through a bad recession. So it was even worse than normal. And yeah, there was this lady that lived like 3 blocks from my house, and she had like a farm that sold lettuce and other produce, and she would let us come and give us lettuce on Sundays. Like Sunday is a day is a kind of a weird thing. Sunday is a day is where everybody back home like they eat like this like big meal, but it's kind of early in the day, like around 12 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where we got that from, funny enough. But on that day, she would let us like ride around on our bicycles, and each one we sold was a dollar total, and we would get 25 cents each. And that's what I did for a couple years growing up, when it was really really young. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So necessity, interesting. Okay, okay. And that was kind of just the thing. Like, it sounds like what we were saying. People that were in Bush Hall or kind of in that area, just it was just about the hustle. Like, no matter what it is, just making it out of there. If it's like you said, sports or, working for someone and taking part of their pay. So, okay.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Like everybody had a hustle, is what I would say. Like everybody had, even if you had a regular job, you still had some type of hustle. That's just how, like, if you wanted to like get better, that's what you had to do.
wow. Okay.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
so obviously that kind of impacts your, how you are as an entrepreneur. What other things in your culture do you think, like influence you in your business, how you carry yourself, how you execute, in business?
Yeah, I really like that question. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I like that question.
You too.
Because it gets me to be able to talk a little bit about Barbados, because usually like, people skip over that part. So this is really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so back home, right? In Barbados, so, so I'll actually say it this way. When I first moved to the United States, one of the first things that really stood out to me was in the area that I lived, like nobody knew each other. I
Mm-hmm.
lived there, and like the neighbor didn't say hi. I didn't know like my neighbor on the other side. It was kind of like a really secluded life where you just went to work or school, and you come home, and um and you just like go in your own little like seclusion or something like that.
Okay.
But back home, it's completely different. Like everybody for like a 5 mile radius. You know what I mean? So there's a
Mm-hmm.
real yeah, there's a real community where you can just like stop by some person's house and like walk in and get something to eat and watch TV for a bit, and it's like it's completely different. So that part of my upbringing also makes me think about building businesses in a more community type way. So
Mm.
that's the reason why, yeah. So like when I'm building a business, I'm like sharing about it on Facebook. I'm telling people about the process.
Mm-hmm.
I'm letting people watch me work in some ways. I'm kind of like writing articles to help other people to come along and build businesses of their own that are very, very similar to mine. Even if they compete, I don't care. And that's really, I think, the part of my business building that has been infused in me from growing up in this really community driven place in Bashal and in Barbados.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow. Okay. So definitely community based. And you're right. I'm thinking about it now. I'm like literally that's what I do in my community, the community I grew up in Rhode Island. Literally, you go to work, you wave maybe if the neighbors, wave to you and if you're on good terms with them and then you come home after work and that's it. It's not really a like, let me sit out on my porch and like, let me go to my neighbor's house and that type of thing as adults. So I like that. I like that that's kind of the unique aspect. What's something, I
Yeah.
know I'm going a little bit off because I think that culture is so important for people to, at least my followers and my listeners to learn about you. So, what are some things that maybe you could warn people about that are coming out of Barbados or maybe anywhere in the Caribbean that maybe you were tripped up on, like as becoming an entrepreneur? What are some things that might be helpful to them?
Yeah. So my path, I think that the path that I kind of took was one that I would advise people to try to take as well. I mean, there's multiple different ways of cooking this fish dinner, what I'm saying? But
Mm-hmm.
like my example was I came to the United States and I came here to study, so I got my degree. Like a lot of people come from the Caribbean to study.
Of
I got my
course.
degree and yeah, and I started working in the field that I thought that I would love, like a professional field. I was an accountant. I was an accountant in finance, and I know a lot of my Caribbean brothers and sisters and like do those type of roles because it's pretty good and it's pretty well paid. But what I would advise is while you're doing that, and which is what I did, while I was doing that, I was starting to think, okay, is this something I want to do for the next 40 or 50 years?
Mm.
Or would I like to find some different opportunities to do some creative things and potentially work for myself? And when I realized that that answer was yes, I wanted to find some ways to work for myself, I started diligently going to work as normal. How you still have to pay the mortgage or pay the rent or and pay the bills, and then after work, I would come home and spend like another 5 hours on my own time working on my side hustle, whatever that was. I've gone through a million of them, right? And so
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah. So really, like the overarching thing is to say like not to worry about having a full-time job because it's what I did,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to pay the bills. You got to help your family back home. A lot of us have to do that and want to do that. But there is more time. There's about another 40 hours during the week that are not spent at work that could be spent on working on some type of side hustle that could change your entire life like it did mine. So that's
Mm.
kind of the thing that I would say. Like think about that extra time that you have.
And what you could be using it for, like are you, when you're not at your job, like are you out partying or are you thinking of, hey, in 30 years, like your background was in accounting, I think I saw, so then
Yeah.
you kind of transitioned to the entrepreneurial world, so you're saying, you spent that extra 5 hours after you worked, during the day, and then a day you spent 5 hours, just building something for, hey, or I may already be bored with this and I'm ready to move on to the next thing.
Hmm.
So, but that comes from motivation, of course.
Yeah.
So let's see. We just answered that question. So I'm thinking, moving along to your time experimenting with website building and other entrepreneurship related tasks. What kept you going day after day? Like, what was your true motivation to kind of break out of accounting and just transition into working for yourself?
Well, mine was pretty cold blooded. I got laid off.
Oh, I see.
And yeah, I got laid off. I had started a new job. I left my bigger, big, large corporation job where I could have probably still been there now, and I left it to move to a smaller company for what I thought was some additional opportunities, like more pay, and kind of like the next step. But as soon as I got there, they started laying people off, and I had just gotten in, and I literally got laid off in about 3 months.
Mm.
So because also now I'm an immigrant, so I still didn't have my citizenship, so I was a work visa, and that makes it very, very, very difficult to another job, because that new company has to work to file your. It's very, very complicated. So
Oh.
I was without work for 1 year. And during that time, I went through all my 401k and my savings and all that, like paying my mortgage. It was crazy.
Oh my
But during that
gosh.
time, I spent every waking moment learning on how to build web-based companies, build internet companies, trying things, hustling, selling things on eBay, Craigslist, like going crazy just to keep the lights on.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, really improved my marketing skills and my skills in building websites and getting customers and so on. I improved it completely during that year, and then I was able to get my first big win. I ended up getting another job, but only for a short time, like 7 months, and then I quit
Okay.
that, and then I'll never probably work for somebody else again if I can afford
You're, I see. Okay, okay.
it. Yeah.
So, you being laid off kind of started this journey of, wanting to work for yourself and having to make money, which you already were kind of prepared for, right, from your upbringing in Barbados. So, that was, a good foundation. So let's move on to inclusive, which I just love everything about it. I love the website. I love I forget her name. I spoke to the woman that you're the person that takes calls and customer support. Is it Gina?
Gina.
Gina,
Gina. Yeah.
yeah, I love speaking to her, and just kind of the nature of how inclusive was created. So just tell us about kind of how that idea came to fruition.
Yeah. So that came out of another funny enough, it seems like a lot of my companies come out of like weird experiences,
Yep.
like being laid off or being
Mhm.
rejected Airbnb or something like that.
Yep,
So
yep.
in in this case, I was heading to Idaho on vacation, pretty random,
Mhm.
and I went on Airbnb, and I basically was told that the property I wanted wasn't available. So I tried some other dates and I was told that those weren't available either. And it kind of felt a little bit weird. So I had one of my friends who happens to be white to select the same dates that I was rejected for, and they were approved like instantly.
Mm.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, this is crazy. So I reached out to Airbnb to let them know what happened. And I felt like their response was dismissive. Um, so I ended up writing about my story on social media, and it blew up. Like I woke up to over 2,000 emails and all these calls from like Huffington Post and like NBC and New York Times. Like it went crazy viral.
Oh my gosh.
And then, yeah, yeah. Then Airbnb called me like the next day, like, hey, like their tone was completely different the second time. Like, like we really apologize. We like to offer you a free stay and all this stuff. But at that point, it was kind of too late, and I'm based on the emails that I was receiving. I realized that it's not just me. Like this is, and it was like a systemic problem on the platform. So given that, I felt like I had the ability, and now I had the motivation to do something about it. And
Mhm.
we came up with a concept of inclusive, which is vacation rentals in about 130 countries in the world right now, and we address and solve hopefully the problem of discrimination and prejudice and bias that you'll find in some of the larger platforms.
Mm. And I've experienced that as well. So for people who are not of color, that is happening. We're not making it up, and it's not just Rohan. It's not just me. There's many people who have definitely, suffered from discrimination. So the beautiful thing about entrepreneurship is when there's a need, when there's an issue, you find band together with however many other people and create what's needed. So that's what I completely love about inclusive. Um, So,
Thank
with
you.
yeah, of course. So, due to your expertise, please tell us your thoughts on how companies are falling short of being culturally sensitive in their advertisements and, their overall execution of their brand.
Yeah, man, I could talk all day on this, so you're gonna have to stop me. But
I'll let you know. I'll be like, cut it now. Okay, go.
so here's the thing. It starts in this space. It starts with tech companies and a lot of larger companies as well, like beyond just what you would consider tech startups. It starts in a space where they hire only from within their circles. So say you're a white founder. For the first 200 employees, the first 200 of them may just be white people,
Mm,
and may seem completely normal and natural because your friends referred their friends and your family referred their family. And so it really starts at that point in the beginning with not hiring people of color. So when that happens, then you don't have the voices at the table to tell you, hey, you know what? This may be a problem, not thinking about reflecting people of color in your marketing and advertising. That may present a problem down the line by making your the people on your platform feel that it's okay to be exclusionary,
mm,
because like you're showing an exclusionary brand to them. You're attracting people that feel comfortable being exclusionary, then your platform ends up being exclusionary. But but the platform looking that way is a symptom and is a reflection of what happened when you started the company and how you do your hiring. So if you look at like Airbnb, Google, some of these large companies, you're going to see it's like 2% or 3% African American, and that's like at the high end.
wow.
And that problem, it just filters through the entire organization in every single department, and then you end up with problems like the ones that we have right now.
Yeah, I know, and there's so many different brands, and I'm just like, okay, I'll leave it at that. But I think, I feel like what you're saying is people hire within, so we hire people that remind us of us that feel like we can trust. So wow, so that's powerful, and so with that, the people on the teams are kind of, it's almost like one mind, like one group type of thing. Like if everyone's saying yes because they're all seeing it one way, it seems good to us, it looks good to us. And then that's kind of where these faux pas, I call them, are coming out. So,
Yep.
so with your brands and your businesses, how do you promote diversity?
Yeah. So and it starts like the same way, except that we're like, yo, let's think about how we can have the smartest minds at the table in every single possible role imaginable.
Mm,
And if you think that way, the smartest minds, like they're not all going to look like me. Want like first off, like so as we're building our companies, I want to find the smartest people wherever they live
mm-hmm,
around the world, and then that ends up being like this really crazy business that looks like the UN, like if you were to see us all in one place.
mm-hmm,
So myself, then my co-founder Zakia, well, she's from Atlanta, so she's a black woman. So
mm-hmm,
like, okay, we have black voices at the table.
mm-hmm,
That's incredibly important.
mm-hmm,
Then our head developers is from Ghana, so it's not just like an African American or Caribbean look. Now we have people from Africa that are thinking about issues that may reflect even Black Africans differently than it reflects Black people in the West.
mm,
And then our main designer is from Poland. So we have this, white European guy that has some different sensibilities. But when we kind of like hire that way, like the best possible person from wherever they are in the world, and we think about diversity and inclusion from the beginning, then we're able to reflect it in our branding, in our customer acquisition, in our advertising, in how we design the platform. Like, do you have to show photos or not?
mm-hmm.
And what's the impact of that? Like everything kind of filters through when we have like all these different voices at the table, and it makes building companies fun, and I think it makes us end up doing better and making more money and being more successful, and then also being able to give back more. it's like completely positive. It's a completely positive outcome. So that's how we approach it. Yeah.
So I'm very interested in this topic. Like this is to me. So before we take our break, so my last question on this particular topic is: so how do you balance all of the personalities and cultures? Since if when you have a diverse crew, I'm sure some issues can bring about a lot of different opinions. So how do you balance everything?
I've never really looked at it that way, or had to approach solving any problems with the people that way. So what we do is 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 balance one time, I would say, and that one time is in our selection process.
Okay.
So as we're hiring, yeah, we're looking for people that are going to be a good fit for the organization, and that's something that some other companies say as well. But it ends up looking like everybody looks the same. But when we think about a good fit, we're thinking about like, will this be a person would um that would come in
Hold on.
and we would have as much fun.
There's some feedback on your
Some
end.
weirdness.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's like
How, how is that? Is that better?
yes, much better. Okay. Keep going. Sorry.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no problem. So we're thinking about like, when this person comes in, will they make the environment that we're working in as positive, as fun, as free as it is? Would it be some person that we feel would kind of like fit into our overall culture of how we work? Like, we work in a very loose way where we don't really have that many meetings. People live all over the place, but they can all fly in if they want to, and like we live together for like 6 months. It's kind of a family vibe, and then we add some person new to the family. But then after that, I don't really think like we have to do much tweaking. Like, some people work out, and like most people work out, and then for the ones that don't work out, we kind of like move on and try to find a better fit. So I don't really have like a really good technique there beyond just having hired so many people that we kind of have a good vibe now on what works.
Got it. So then that makes sense. It starts from the interviewing process, like, what they are bringing to the table and just, their history with working and just the sense that you get from them from the beginning. And usually it sounds like you're saying carry over, while they're working for you. So, okay, so good stuff. So we're going to take a super quick break and then we'll be back to wrap up. And we're back. So, for the last part of my interviews, I've been starting kind of this new feature for season 3. And I like focusing on strengthening the connection between business owners as well as their followers. I want to have you pick 3 numbers between 1 and 50, and I'm going to read off the questions, and you'll just answer them. So, if you don't mind. What's the first number between 1 and 50?
Give me number 14.
Okay, let's see what this is. Oh, okay. All right. Have you ever seen insanity where you later saw creativity? That's what I thought. That was what I thought when I read it. Okay.
Oh, okay. Have I ever seen insanity where I later saw creativity? Um, yeah, I'm gonna say yes, and I'll talk about that for like a split second. So on Twitter, I was Twitter is like one of my favorite social media platforms. Probably right after Facebook.
Okay.
It's my only other social media platform actually.
Okay. Good choice. Good choice.
Yeah, I like it a lot. So I was on there and I came across this lady called the slum flower,
Oh,
and like the slum flower,
okay.
and she posts like all of these, like she's kind of like a like an influencer, but really like a down to earth. She's from the UK and she's originally from Nigeria, so she has like a really cool like Nigerian slash British accent, and she just posts like all these like crazy short clips of herself and videos of her back home in Nigeria. And it's like, so the first time I came across her, I was like, man, this is one like she's out, she's kind of out there, right? She's kind
Mm-hmm.
of out there. And I was like, okay, cool. And then turns out like 6 months later, we ended up I ended up thinking about people that I really like to like I would really like to work with,
Mm-hmm.
and she came to mind. So I reached out to her, and we ended up hiring her, and she is now the social media director for Inclusive.
Wow.
And so yeah, and yeah, so there's mad creativity. Like so, all like if you come across a dope Twitter post that is insightful and like cool pictures and like gets 100 retweets or something,
Hmm.
that's probably her. If it's something that is boring and bland, it's probably me.
Oh my God. But that's why you added her to your team to kind of spice things up. Um,
Absolutely.
awesome. Okay. So, next number.
Oh, give me 25.
Okay. You know it's weird? In my head, I was saying 25. That is really, really weird. Okay. So, what are you most grateful for?
Huh. So well, I'm most grateful for this yeah, okay. So this will have to be it. Like so now that I have had some success in business,
Mm-hmm.
I'm now able to have like these like financial like really like material financial real objective impacts on my family. So I'm able like so like if people are need assistance or something goes wrong or there's an emergency in some way, I end up being the person that my family looks to.
Mm.
And so that actually, even though I complain about it, like I'm like still a Caribbean guy, like I complain about it, like but at the end of the day, I feel really grateful that I'm in the position to help my family out in the way that I am, um, by doing the work that I have done in business.
I see. So that like you're able to give to other people and that you're that person.
Yeah. It's a really wonderful feeling to be able to change people's lives like that. So I don't take it for granted. No.
Mm. All right. And then the last number.
Give me number 4.
Number 4. Um, okay. If happiness was the national currency, what kind of work would make you rich? Happiness?
Jeez.
Is happiness right? I'm like, hold on, okay. Do you understand it?
I
Because
got
I'm
it.
still trying to. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I got it. Uh,
Oh, okay.
it's
Yep.
a really good question. Really
Mm-hmm.
good question. Yeah, yeah. So what would really what would I want to do to bring me like all the happiness?
Exactly. That's what I.
So
Yeah.
so like I'll say that what I'm doing now brings me a lot of happiness, but if I if I were going to be like Bill Gates rich with happiness,
Mm-hmm.
I would be I would be like back in the Caribbean, not only in Barbados but throughout the Caribbean, building like a tech hub where people in the Caribbean could use my example and other people's examples that I know and learn the process of building very very simple online businesses and be able to um, just be successful having the entire world be your customer base. So instead of just building a company and your customers come from Barbados or come from Jamaica or Trinidad,
Mm-hmm.
your customers can come from Japan. You know what I mean? And that whole
Oh.
thing, like I would love to be able to just go there and teach this entire process, like everything that's in my head right now, just lay it out across the Caribbean and have like a Caribbean Silicon Valley or something.
Oh,
That would
wow.
be like the greatest, most amazing thing, and it's a dream of mine. Yeah.
Okay, got it, got it. All right. Well, unfortunately, we have to wrap up this interview. I'm having so much fun. Um,
Mhm.
but let our listeners know where they can find you and get in touch with you.
Yeah, so twitter.com, Rohan Gilkes, Facebook, Rohan Gilkes as well, and Rohan at inclusive.com. That's my email.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and for inclusive, so that email would be just kind of general questions about you collaborating or like maybe some questions with inclusive, but and where can they go, like the website for inclusive, I should say, if they're interested in being a host or a guest.
Yeah, absolutely. So inclusive.com, that's two N's. You can go on there, you can chat live with us on the website. There's a chat button on the lower right hand side. You can also email support@inclusive.com and get us that way as well. And then check out our inclusive Facebook page. And we have a travel with inclusive Facebook group as well.
Yes. Well, thank you, thank you. I know you're super busy. You have so many things going on with inclusive and your other businesses, but thank you for taking time to come on my show.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Anytime. Thanks. And that concludes another exciting episode of The Business of Soul Searching. If the content discussed in this podcast interests you, please contact me at thebusinessofsoulsearching@gmail.com. Also, make sure you subscribe. And most importantly, take a calculated risk this week. Don't do it for me, do it for you.